Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. That greeting is particularly appropriate today given the title of our webinar, Following the Sun, Managing a Distributed Workforce. Today's webinar is brought to you by Everbridge. I'm Megan Selva, and I'll be your sponsor today, or your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. If you experience any difficulty with the webinar itself, you can get help by clicking on the green question mark at the bottom of your screen. You can participate in the Q&A session by asking questions at any time during this webinar. Click on the red Q&A button and type your question into the Ask a Question text area below the video window, then click Submit. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. To chat with others who are attending today, click on the Group Chat button at the bottom right of your screen. We love having you exchange ideas during the webinar, and you help each other a great deal. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. You may also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the Additional Resources button located below the presentation window. If you experience any technical problems, please visit our help guide by clicking on the Help link below the media player. In addition, you can contact our technical support helpline, which is also located in the webinar help guide. Remember that today's webinar will be available on demand about 24 hours from now, and you'll receive an email reminder to let you know that it's available. You can connect with HDI on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on HDI Connect, where you can read a blog, ask a question, or find a solution. Our featured speaker today is Brandon Caudle. Brandon is a seasoned veteran of the technical support industry with more than 2 decades of experience as a practitioner, vendor, and consultant. He's the author of 2 books on leadership and customer service, and he speaks at industry conferences around the world. From ITSM and KCS initiatives to day-to-day operations, he leads virtual teams scattered across time zones and continents, utilizing technology and innovation to bridge distance and culture. In his current role as IT Service Desk Manager for First American Financial, his team works seamlessly across 3 countries to provide a single point of contact for 17,000 employees worldwide. Thanks for being with us today, Brandon. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate that. And thank you, UBM and HDI and Everbridge, for having me on today. I'd like to thank everyone for joining, and like Megan said, wherever you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. We're glad to have you join today as we talk about distributed support, whether it's within time zones, across countries, geographies. I'm going to try and share my experiences and some tips, some techniques, some practices that I've learned from both being on the receiving end of a distributed support team, as well as managing or leading those teams. I'd love to hear from you, whether it's today in the chat or if you'd like to reach out afterwards. I'm easily found online. You can just look me up, Google, or through social media. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a poll for today. And what I'd like to find out from everyone is how many locations does your company have? And that can be buildings, if you wish to define it as buildings within a geography, perhaps within a city. Is it a campus that has many buildings on it, or perhaps you have spread across different cities? But I'll leave it up to everyone to decide what it is that defines the number of locations that they have. If you can go ahead, we'll leave the poll open here, so it should be open now that everyone can see that. And what we're going to try and do is get a sense of those who are attending, as well as some industry numbers that we have for what are we now supporting? Where are we supporting? What times are we supporting? So how many locations, buildings, campuses, or cities does your company have? I will go ahead now. Let's go ahead and see the results of that poll. And it looks like overwhelmingly we're in multiple locations. We can see the numbers here, and I'll just read that out loud for everyone, that we have 60% are in 11 or more locations. And that can be, again, be broken down by perhaps buildings within a campus or a city. It could be campuses that are located in different geographies, different states, different municipalities. It could be cities, time zones. And then we've got, if we add 6 to 10 in there, we're at over 75%. So that's quite a bit. I'd like to shift. I do want to recognize that we have some that are at 1 location and some that are at under 5. And so that's a quarter of our attendees today. Let's shift our focus just a little bit here, and let's go on to in how many cities or countries are your IT support teams located, specifically your technical support. So this is a little different than your company as a whole, which might be lines of business that are spread throughout various geographies. But now let's do a little bit of a poll in how many cities or countries, and you can pick the results of that as well, how you wish to interpret that, whether it's cities, countries, states, but really looking for how widespread your IT teams are. And that can mean what you define it as. I like to look at it as anyone in IT support that I might work with. That could be from the command center, it could be from a data center, it could be level 2s and level 3 teams, engineers. It can be very widespread. I'll leave that up to everyone to define. And we'll give everybody a few seconds here to go ahead and select. So again, we're looking for in how many cities or countries, and you define that as you feel fits your need, are your IT support teams, so different than the lines of business. And we're going to go ahead and move forward, and let's see what our results are now. So how widespread are we? And again, we show that overwhelmingly we are spread out. We do have 15% that are in 1 city or 1 country, so they're in 1 locality as was defined. And we do have a large number, 44%, we'll call it 45%, are in 6 or more, 6 to 10 and 11 plus. So we are spread out quite a bit, and then we've got 40% there in 2 to 5. It doesn't matter how your organization is set up, how widespread or how compact it is. It does appear that we are dealing with issues of distributed support. The days that we had before, where everyone sat in the same local area, are rapidly dwindling. And let's take a look at some of the industry numbers to see what it looks like from our surveys. Now this is from the 2015 HDI Support Center Practices and Salary Report. As you can see from this, about half, according to the survey, are spread out. And that's a very good number. It looks like here on our webinar today, we have even more than that. That's probably because of the type of webinar we're having today about distributed support. You can see from these numbers, and these are available through HDI for our members, you can see up to half in some areas are in multiple countries, multiple sites. That would be on the right-hand side of our slide. And on the left-hand side, you can see that the number of support centers, which we did not talk about or poll for, but the number that we have is actually about 50% as well for multiple. So I'm hoping that today I'll be able to share some things that are useful. Please feel free to ask questions. We have a group chat, as we said, and also you can, at the end, we're going to have some time for question and answer. But I'd like to get your thoughts and feelings as we go along as well. So the first thing I want to bring up is, this actually applies whether you have a distributed workforce or whether they all sit right outside your work area, is to set expectations. So whether you're doing widget support, whether you're doing projects, I have found that when you set the standards, when you set the goals, when you set what's expected of you every day, that things operate a lot better. And so whether I have a team who is sitting literally 5 feet from me, or whether they are 5 time zones from me, or whether they're on the other side of the world, having them know what's expected is a huge difference in how they actually work every day, because they know what they're there for. I also find that it's useful if you communicate that out and you find a way to report on that as often as possible. I listen on here daily because that's how I feel. It could be different for everybody. It could be weekly or monthly. However, the more feedback that you give somebody, the more that they know how they're doing, it really pays off. So in the past several organizations that I've been in, we found a way to give daily, and sometimes we've gotten down to hourly feedback so people know how they're doing, and that's communicating that out. A next level would be if they can self-report and they can see how they're doing without having to get a report. They can run it at any time and they can see how they do and compare to their coworkers, in fact. So that's the first thing I think you have to do is come up with the expectations. And this is not a far leap for anybody because these are things that we most likely in service and support are already doing. We're communicating these out. We start with our yearly goals, and we have our quarterly and monthly metrics, and we've often broken this down into weekly and daily. The biggest challenge for us in this is to take the old-fashioned paper that we printed off and put outside of the service desk manager's cubicle or the desktop manager's cubicle or any tech team, and instead we put them online. I found that many organizations, when I step into them, are already doing this. And here at First American, we're doing this as well, so we put them online so everybody can see. Now, these 10 or 12 tips that we're going through and techniques are not in any particular order, but I do find that the first two up front seem to carry a little bit more weight. In addition to setting the standards and setting the goals, is having regular meetings with them and actually having regular one-on-ones. I'm a big advocate and a big proponent of anyone who is not in the same physical location as you. They might be in another city. They might be in another time zone, another country. Set up regular periodic meetings. They know that Wednesdays at 5 p.m. your time, at 2 p.m. their time, they're going to have a one-on-one with you, and you dedicate that time. There's a lot of industry research going on now around one-on-ones, specifically for a distributed workforce, and the reason is every day we talk to people who are around us. Now, I haven't asked how many people work at home that are on the call here, how many of our leaders and managers are working at home, so I'm going to go with the presumption that we're in the office at least part of the time. I'm in the office 5 days a week. And my team that sits around me or close to me, I often go by them on the way to the break room or just to go out and say hello or to follow up on something. And so I actually have a challenge for everybody, and that is for one day of the week, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's this afternoon, maybe it's next week, but actually make it count and try and take a record of how much time you spend in any kind of face-to-face verbal communication with everyone that is local to you. Obviously, if you work from home full-time, you're a telecommuting manager or leader, or if you have your entire team who is remote from you, this won't work. It does work, however, if you're on the same campus or they're just one building over. So I challenge you to count how much time you spend with them in face-to-face verbal communication. I'm talking specifically to leaders and managers at this point. If it's less than 5 minutes a day, my suggestion is you might not be communicating as much as you think you are, and so that might be a good way to reevaluate it, maybe have someone else help you with that. I've actually told some of my folks that are here local to me in California to count for a day and see how much time I spend just every day as I walk by and say hello, ask them how they're doing, tell them good morning, tell them I'm leaving for the evening, to ask them to follow up on an issue, to get some feedback from them. The folks who are remote, that's what these regular ones are for, the distributed workforce, because this makes up for the time that our local employees get just because we're in the same building or in the same work area. And so I like to dedicate between 30 and 60 minutes depending on how often you're having your one-on-ones. Now, I actually have set up for weekly one-on-ones. I have other peers of mine that set it up for every other week and some for once a month. It just has to work for you. It has to work for you. It has to work for the employee. Now, there's a couple of schools of thought here about having these set formal weekly one-on-ones. One of them is to never, ever miss a meeting, to always hold it no matter what, no matter if it's fire, flood, priority one, severity one, but to always hold that meeting. And the thinking is that if you ever have to cancel a meeting, that it conveys a disappointment and in some ways betrays some trust that you have. I'm actually in the second school. The second school is to set it up for a frequent meeting. That's why I have it for weekly. And when you do have to cancel it, let them know. Communicate as far in advance as possible to tell them, hi, I'm out sick today. We're not going to have our meeting. Hi, I have this emergency meeting which is coming up in 2 hours. I don't think I'll be able to. And try to reschedule that meeting because it really is important that they have that time. The reality is it's probably somewhere between the one that I favor, or the flexibility, and the concrete one of never miss it. It has to work for you because once you build up that trust, that relationship with them, you can miss a meeting much easier then. They will sometimes send you a message and say, you know what, I have to go early to the dentist. Is it okay? Can we reschedule the meeting? Because you've built that up with them. But no matter what, communicate with them. I learned a very important lesson from one of my leads about a decade ago, who every day when she came in would go down the aisle and she would say hello to every single person and just spend 30 seconds talking to each one. It made it that much easier whenever we had something that wasn't an easy topic to talk about. She was able to then approach them with whether it was how they handled a process, whether it was an escalation, or some type of other customer interaction. She was able to talk to them because she built that relationship. And for us, that's the challenge, how to build that with our distributed workforce. It does take time. If you have 50 people reporting directly to you, this might not work. You might need some folks in between there, some type of supervisors or leads in between. However, as much as possible, this helps. Now, I want to do another poll, whether you actually are holding one-on-ones today, whether it's informal meetings, wherever you are in the spectrum, what I want to ask is when you're having your one-on-ones with your direct reports, and if you have no direct reports, if you report to somebody, during those one-on-ones, what do you discuss? Now, there's probably a wide range of things that we could put here. We've chosen to put, I selected these, work and career. Now, those are two different answers. You have work and you have career. Work specifically where we are now, what's going on, the things that happen today, and career, developing and moving to the position that you want. If you're in the position, enhancing that. Your personal life or their personal life, things that they wish to discuss. And then anything that they want. So please go ahead and select. And I'm going to go ahead in a few seconds here and go on to the results. And let's go ahead and let's see what our feedback is. Wow, that's spread across quite the spectrum there. I think we have in a dead tie work and anything that they want. This is really going to be up to you and your company culture. I would say overall, definitely, we want to talk about work. We want to talk about things that they're specifically challenged with, things that they're doing well. I try and do the sandwich method of something they've done well, something that they are working on, and another thing that they've done particularly well. Career, I'm glad to see that we do have 60%. I think the more that we can talk and help them with that about their career really does help, whether it's to move up within the service desk, within desktop support, within the IT team, the tech support team that they're on, whether it's a project, but really to help them in their personal life. This will depend on your company and your company culture, whether it's taboo to not to ask, but to talk about anything. However, I have found that when they're comfortable and they want to share things, they will often share how they're doing, how their weekend was, how their home life is. And if you're tuned into that, it often helps when you're dealing with issues that are at work. And they do have 75% of people who said anything that they want. So obviously, staying within the human resources and legal constraints. But if somebody does want to talk about the latest movie they saw, sometimes it's just what they need. They're a distributed workforce, and they want to talk about it for a few minutes. So thank you all for participating in that. And the more that you develop their relationships, or the relationships you have with them, the easier it is. That brings us actually into daily communication. So if you have a formal one-on-one time set up with them, and you have the expectations set with them, you get into that water cooler talk, the coffee talk, the things that I just mentioned about walking around as I go to the break room, or as I walk in or out or go to meetings, just taking a second to talk to the people who are right around me and local to where I am. Our distributed workforce, they also can use that as well, and having that small talk that happens. And there's a variety of ways that people do this. I found that many organizations, including the organization I'm in now, that we have extensive use of chat. So no matter what your chat client is, but the officially sanctioned, security approved, everyone has signed off chat that you use, I found that our team chat that we run all day long, and it runs as we follow the sun, our team chat that we have is a good place for not only to communicate work issues, but people actually say hello when they sign on for the morning. They let people know that they're going to lunch, or they're signing off for the night. they wish each other a good weekend, and based on our 24/7 schedule, those who might have a weekend that is actually, say, a Wednesday and a Thursday, you'll find that as they head out on Tuesday, they tell people that they're going for the weekend, and you get that interaction between them. Now, we do keep it as much as possible to minimal as far as that goes, but we also allow them to do that because it provides a virtual water cooler for them to have small talk in. And of course, as people interact one-on-one with chat, that's important as well because they're able to build those relationships. People have entire conversations that really build a relationship with it using technology of chat. Now, specifically for leaders and for managers, I find that this is important. In my first 6 or 7 months in any organization, I always try, as I did here, where I am now, is to every day to ping all of my remote people. And I'm going ahead, and I know it probably isn't official using the term ping, but I am using it. And I would actually, anyone who did not sit in my campus or my building, I would send them an instant message every single day. And many days it was just a simple, hi, good morning, how are you? Or based on where they're located, hello, good afternoon, or good evening, how are things going? And it was just a simple check-in with them. And then sometimes we only got a quick response. I only got a quick response back because of the workload. And other times we were able to conduct an entire conversation. When we do this, I always look for things that I can give them feedback on as well. I have a survey response on something they did really well, and I would tell them, hey, I'm forwarding you this email. You got really good feedback on this. And that way they get something that's good, something that they can look to as a positive. I think one of the worst feelings in the world is when you have a supervisor, a boss, a manager who just sends you a message and says, can you come down here? Or we need to talk, without letting you know what it is. And so I'm very grateful that leadership I've had over time has always tried to say, hey, when you have a second, can we talk about X or about Y so I know what it is? Nobody likes the just could you show up kind of thing. And so I do. I try and chat the people who are not in the same location as me as much as I can. And then depending on your culture and your environment, some of them I actually have texted. And so I might wake up and quickly text them to check in, see how things are going. I've had leads and supervisors that report to me that are not in the same time zone. They're cross-country from me or around the world from me. And so I can text them or using different technologies such as WhatsApp, text overseas, just to check in with them. And that gives actually quite a bit as far as the communication. And obviously, as you have quick calls, you can do that as well. Now, I want to talk about technology for just a little bit. And just a quick reminder, I know it's kind of funny, but this is 2016. And so we are no longer constrained to just an email or a phone call and setting up a time to call somebody. I'm a big proponent that whenever you can, get on the phone with somebody, and even better is to use video. So you can see I'm in the background there. I'm talking with one of my folks here. Fred's in the foreground. And so as much as possible, we use video for anyone who is distributed. And it's not just within the service desk that I manage, but also it's within peer-to-peer across our end-user services and across our IT support. If there is a chance to talk to somebody on video, we do. You know that they're really following you. You know that they're plugged in. You know they're paying attention. And you can really convey a lot with the emotion. Now, if you don't have video, obviously we use the technology that we do have. Chat is really good for quick. It's very easy to respond to. People keep a running chat all day sometimes. Voice is a little harder because if you have projects, you're in meetings, different things of that, you can't necessarily just pick up the phone and call. But I can't stress enough the video. For our folks that have laptops and they come with a webcam already installed, we have that. We went out and we said we will buy webcams and we'll put them on everybody's desktop. And so people have that webcam, so they actually have a good quality one. They can have a video conversation, and peer-to-peer they use it as well. And that really did something to bring our distributed workforce together as far as that goes. And so that anyone doesn't worry, we do have a little cap that people can put on it so that, and you can tell when the webcam's turned on or turned off, so no one feels like someone's watching them all the time. But this change is really phenomenal. The cost is small, and it makes a huge difference. So I would encourage everyone to really embrace the technology, especially with video, to do this. We do have some areas where technically it's a little bit harder because of some of the restrictions we have to have video. So for some of our geographies, we're not able to do that. But wherever possible, we definitely do that. So I'm a big fan. Next up, adjust their time zones. I've put up a map here where you can actually see where my team is located roughly, and we're spread out over 3 countries and 6 time zones. So adjusting to their time zones is very important, and I've heard the school of thought, which is to have them adjust to yours, but that's really difficult when people are working shift work. It's kind of hard to wake them up and to do different things. So what I found works best is to try and adjust to their time zones for communication. And this doesn't mean every day, but the more you can do it, the faster you build a relationship. And what this does mean is I've had drive time calls where during a commute, whether it's a 10-minute commute or a 2-hour commute, you can have calls that you set up, and that's your one-on-one time. And because they are up, I live in California, so my team that's on the East Coast, by the time I wake up, they're already working. They're either in an office or they're a work-at-home worker. And so during that time, I've set up one-on-ones. They can be formal one-on-ones or, hey, on Thursday, how about if we talk during my drive time, and we can do that. And that gives them time that normally I wouldn't be able to compress time into. Weekends. Those of us who have been in IT support, I'm guessing everybody, for a long time, weekends are not necessarily a day which you turn off your phone and just do whatever you want to. So for weekends, I found that just popping my laptop open and talking to the folks who are on the weekend shift, even for 5 or 10 minutes on chat, is a great thing. I'll also pick up the phone and call them and check in, see how they're doing. And I've gotten feedback from my peers and from others who work with them that they really have appreciated I spend the time in doing that. And so while it does take a little bit of your time, it pays off to do that and to really adjust to them a little bit. When you add it up, it's probably less than an hour a week that you're spending on these outside of your normal hours. We spend a lot more time than that dealing with different other things that have to do with work, so I think it's important to carve that out. Early morning, late at night, if you have shift work and you have, perhaps it's in a different continent than you, it's a good thing to do, the early morning and late night check-ins. Travel is often a challenge, and so I want to share some things that we have done, that I've done here, is if you're able to budget this, and I'll start off with, it really requires getting budget for travel, and it requires leadership support. And I am very happy in my position here that we have both of those, budget and leadership support, all the way up the chain, because my company very much supports this. And there's 2 types of travels, and one is to have people who are not on the main campus, and that may include those of you on the call now, to visit the main campus, the main headquarters. So if you are remote from wherever headquarters or the main buildings are, that may involve you traveling to there, as well as any employees, anyone on your team who's able to visit. I will put a caveat that is very difficult to do international travel as much as I've posted on here quarterly. Certainly it would be difficult for all employees. However, the managers can also, and leaders can travel to remote sites, anywhere that is in the world. And so the value of this is just huge, to spend the day working with somebody side by side. So what I've done is not only travel to the sites, our official sites where we have in the U.S. and overseas, but also we have some telecommuters who work from home, and I've been able to go and visit them and to work with them side by side and to spend the day with them, take them out to lunch, and really just spend the day working with them in just one-on-one time. And so that's a huge thing. Bringing them on campus, on your main headquarters, is a really big deal. So we actually did that last week as we brought all of our remote distributed workforce in the United States to our main campus, and our second-level team took all of our calls for 3 days, and we went through training and development, and that really did a lot to build our team. I'm sure that everyone has had the the experience of working with somebody that's not in your same location. You only talk to them on the phone and chat and email. Maybe you do that for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years. As you finally do meet them, it's just really an overwhelming psychological happiness that happens from meeting somebody that you have not previously met. So I heartily encourage you to do this. And working on justifications for it is a whole topic in and of itself. Be happy to talk with folks offline about that. Now, here's an idea that I'm not yet a disciple of. I'm not necessarily a fan of yet because I haven't had the experience of it very much successfully, but I do know that it works for peers of mine and colleagues of mine across the industry, is to have a virtual open door, virtual office hours. Make it time when you're available to talk. And this is great because if you set up a consistent, I'm always available Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central Time. This allows people to, quote, drop in and be able to converse with you. But there are some cons to it also. I mean, you can be overridden by crises or outages. Somebody can monopolize it and take over. And so you have to set parameters sometimes. If you have the same person who wants to spend it every hour, maybe you need to look at their one-on-one time and see if you expand that instead. See if it's something that you can do to make time valuable to everyone. The bane of all companies' meetings, and having distributed staff attend meetings is pretty much a no-brainer. We use conference calls just as we are on now. The challenge is to have it so they participate in the meetings and they feel like the meetings are useful to them. So a couple things I put up here is having them present at the meetings. Have them give an item, give an update, take Q&A from their peers. Have them lead the meetings, and that does take some time to train them just as it would somebody who sits next to you. And empower them regardless of distance. We run, you can see on the left-hand side of the screenshot, a team chat during our meeting in which there is a lot of discussion going on because instead of coming off of mute, what people do is ask a question and then they answer, everyone else can answer in the chat, and we get a lot of answers that way, and people will read them out loud and call them out, ask questions, have people one-on-one talk about it. It's really a good thing. Inclusion. So this should be everyone's wake-up slide. If you haven't had lunch yet, we really try and include everybody in everything. And so I am fortunate that my company does include everybody in items, events, things that happen, whether it's a conference call, whether it's things that are mailed out to people physically that happen, we do include people. So for us, it is a very natural thing to do. I have been in other organizations where it's a little bit more of a challenge. So I say we start with things like Customer Service Week and make activities that are virtual, that people can participate no matter where they are. If you're bringing in team lunch, order your folks who are distributed, order them delivery. Sometimes you just send them like a coffee card, a Starbucks card, or movie tickets. Find out what they like and include them within that. And so there's many ways to actually include the remote or the distributed team, which I think go a long ways to building a relationship. Career pathing. I think here is the key, is really just treat them like everybody else. You can send them to training. You can send them to classes. You can look for positions that are available, distributed as well, and help and encourage them, and really sell it to the other teams. I think the thing is just don't treat them any differently. And I've had some good success here and in other organizations with my distributed workforce who have been promoted into other positions, both service desk, desktop, and throughout IT. So it definitely can happen. One thing that's going to be a major assist or a major help is asking for feedback. And this happens during one-on-ones. It happens in informal. It happens when you talk to somebody on chat or you pick up the phone. It happens when you visit them or they visit you. It's just ask overall for feedback. And feedback can be in many different ways, or on many different things as well. It can be how our distributed team functions, how communication happens, what's good, what can be improved. When our distributed workforce came to campus last week here in California, we had very good feedback, and also very interesting. For them, working among the group was completely different, and there were some positives and there were some challenges in that. They're used to a quiet room, a smaller campus, a smaller building. This was a big thing. And lastly, my last slide here is on managing major incidents. So as soon as this webinar finishes, I get to step back into a major incident because they happen all the time in IT support. We know that. The key here is to make sure that you're doing the same thing for your distributed workforce as you do for your local workforce. So when it's local, often we will just stand up and say, hey everybody, we're having this issue. What we've done is we've conditioned ourselves here to first chat that in the team chat. So worldwide, the workforce who is not here, but the half that are distributed around the world, they pick it up immediately and they can start responding to things as well. Communication, communication, communication. That is what you want. What we don't want is 5 people all jumping onto a bridge call because they think that no one else is. Really, it is a challenge. However, there are many ways to tackle this, and our sponsors today, Everbridge, are going to talk about this and take us through the rest of it. So I want to go ahead and hand the time over to you. So go ahead, and thank you very much for your time here, and I'll be around for questions and answers. But let me go ahead and hand this over to Everbridge.
Thank you, Brandon. As Brandon mentioned, if you have any questions, please do submit them by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. With us today to discuss more about managing a distributed workforce is Vincent Giuffre. Vincent is a Senior Director of Product Marketing at Everbridge, where he focuses on IT alerting and communications and the Internet of Things. Over to you, Vincent.
Okay. Thank you very much, Megan. Thank you, Brandon. Brandon talked about the challenges of managing a distributed team across locations, countries, and time zones, and he shared with us best practices and tips on how to make the distributed team even better, even stronger, with appropriate communications and collaborations. And what I'd like to do now is talk about the interaction that our team, the service desk or the IT support team, have with people outside this IT support team, and in particular when things go wrong with IT. And what I'm going to do is look at what we, the IT support team, have to deal with, and I will walk you through the top 5 reasons why your communication workflows may be broken, and at the same time, we'll show you how you can improve the processes and make your team and the communication even more efficient. So let's start with what's happening when something goes wrong. So I guess we don't even need to do a poll here to ask the question of what's happening when things go wrong, because I think we all know that if something very bad happened with IT, there's most likely going to have a business impact. So your customers are going to be complaining. Customers are going to be frustrated because they cannot use the IT service. They cannot buy online products and services. If it's an internal application, they may not have access to the system, and so on and so forth. So we know when something very bad happens. But in detail, what do we have to deal with in the IT support team? So it all starts with something going wrong. Should that be your business application, websites going down, websites being too slow? If you are in manufacturing, the ERP system, your SAP, your Oracle business system is going down. If we're working in a hospital, then the electronic medical record system goes down, or it experiences a partial or full outage, preventing doctors and clinicians from using the system, right? So what's going to happen is the issues are going to be detected. Very soon after that, the ticket is going to be created in our ITSM solution, should we be using ServiceNow, Lendesk, or any other tool. But really the question for us in the IT support team is, now what? We know there's a big issue. We have tickets created. We have frustrated customers putting into the help desk, and we need now to hand it over to other people so that they can fix the problem, right? So the question we have here especially when we are distributed, when the team is located across different time zones or countries, is how are we going to communicate quickly with the major IT incident response team, so the people, the IT experts who are going to work on the issue and try to fix it. But in the meantime, how are we going to communicate with the customers so we let them know that, yes, we know there's an issue, IT is aware of the situation, IT team is working on this issue, and we will let you know as soon as the service goes back online. So how do we do that? And if the issue is big enough, at one point, the senior management teams can get anxious. Again, if the company is losing revenue because of the IT issue, at some point, the senior VP of sales, the chief marketing officer, or even the CEO may ask us in the IT support team to provide updates every 15 minutes, every half an hour. So how do we do that? So in a typical crisis, what we see when we talk to organizations is too often when we ask the question, what do you do when you've got a P1, have one of major incident? Too many times, organizations are just sending an email to the IT team, hoping that someone is going to jump on it and take responsibility for it. Or they just go through repositories and call trees to try to call someone, hoping that he's going to assemble a team and start working on the issue. Then we may also set up a conference call and try to invite people to get on the bridge, and so on and so forth. And most of the time, we see frustration within the IT support team because we cannot reach out to the right people. And sometimes people just don't get the notification because they may be away from their desk, out to lunch, they may be in a different meeting, they may be already on the phone, they may be on PTO, or like Brandon mentioned, because of the time zone and different countries, they may just be sleeping because it's night for them. So how do we improve this process to limit alert fatigue and try to prevent the friction that these type of communications create within the IT operations team, service desk team, and development? So what I'm going to do now is walk you through the 5 top reasons why sometimes communication workflows are broken, and we'll see how we can improve the situation and make the communication even more efficient. So the first reason why the process may not be optimized is in some organizations we see that when they are facing a major incident, they just don't have a plan in place. They don't have a communication plan in place, so they don't even know who's on call and who's called. So recommendations here. Be prepared, because failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So be prepared. Know that when there's a P1 identified or major incident, make sure you have the steps and you know exactly what to do. So you can quickly contact your major incident response team. Number 2, we see when we talk to IT organizations and IT support teams that sometimes there are just too many manual processes. And because of that, they're wasting a lot of time. If you're trying to get on the phone, get on a conference bridge more than 10 people, because you need a DBA, you need a network engineer, you need a few Java developers, someone from NOC, your incident manager, and so on and so forth, to get to 10 people. If you're trying to reach out to everybody manually, it's going to take too much time. And again, during major incidents, every minute counts, and every minute is going to translate into loss of revenue for your company or loss of productivity for employees. So every minute counts. So these kind of manual processes are just a waste of time, and there are solutions out there that you can use to automate the reach out and a response from the recipient. So you know exactly if they have responded, and if they have not yet, the system's going to keep on reaching out to them. Number 3, use the right communication channel. As you know, as we all know, emails don't wake up anybody, especially in the middle of the night, especially if you're trying to reach out a few developers in Beijing, China, from the US. So instead of using emails only, make sure that you've got a way to use multimodality communication. That means the system's going to reach out to people through SMS, through text-to-speech, through voice, through emails maybe, through mobile application push notifications, and so on and so forth, until the recipient answers. The number 4, and Brandon talked about that earlier, when you have distributed teams, and not only for the IT support team, but also for your NOC, for your development teams, for your customer service teams, and so on and so forth, make sure that we are all on the same page when it comes to communication. And calling people in different countries in the middle of the night can be very challenging. So make sure that you have global coverage. You have global coverage for international SMS, voice coverage, and so on and so forth. So make sure that you've tested the system before. Number 5, know who the stakeholders are, and that's very important. That's key. Usually, what we do in IT is there's an IT issue, and we keep thinking about the IT team who's going to fix the issue. But again, we in the IT support team need to be aware of all the stakeholders. They can be the frustrated customers that need to be aware that there's an issue, but we're working on it. But if you take the example of a cyber attack is going to start with the IT security team being involved, but it's going to quickly become an IT ops issue, an IT infrastructure issue. And if the cyber attack leads to a data breach, then most likely the legal department is going to have to be notified. Tenfold marketing that we have maybe to prepare a press release for the following for the next hours. So again, stakeholders can be outside of the IT team, and you need a way to quickly be able to communicate with them. So these were the top 5 reasons why communications workflows may be broken, and how we can quickly and fix those, and to make the processes even more efficient. Just a few words about who we are. Everbridge is a critical communication provider with more than 2,700 customers. Last year, in 2015, we sent more than 1 billion messages. And again, what we do is reaching out quickly to the right people who are going to fix the issue, reaching out to the stakeholder to let them know that something is going on, and communicating with all the customers that may be impacted by an IT issue. If you'd like to get more information and to know more about Everbridge IT Alerting solution, I invite you to visit italerting.com. That's a dedicated website for this solution, and you'll find a way to get a free T-shirt. So again, all this information is available on italerting.com. And with that, I will now pass it back to Megan, as I believe we've already received a few questions from you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Vincent, and thanks again to Everbridge for sponsoring this webinar. Please fill out the feedback form that has opened on your computer. To complete the form, please press the Submit Answer button at the bottom of the page. Thank you in advance for filling out the feedback form. Your participation in our surveys does allow us to serve you better. And now, on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, to participate in the Q&A, just type your question into the box located below the media player and then click the Submit button. Our first question is about what you do when employees don't really want to talk on video chat. So Brandon, if you could address that. What if your employees don't want to talk on video chat?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Thank you, Megan. And so I do have a number of employees over time, and even I think even more currently, who have been a little reluctant to embrace video chat. And so I've usually talked with them and found out if they're comfortable with the technology. Do they use something like FaceTime or Google Hangouts or Skype to call friends or family? And there's some different reasons why people might be a little reluctant. Some is the technology that they really don't. I have some employees who really just don't ever do video chat. And so I walked through it with them one-on-one and assured them that this is just time for us to talk person to person. And other ones that maybe had a sense of hesitancy that they wouldn't be seen in a good light as far as maybe their office. Maybe people who say, well, my desk is a little bit messy. And so in each case, it's to address them individually and to really assure them that it's okay. And what I've done is I'll start my video first all the time. We'll start a conversation through our instant messenger and switch to actual voice, and I'll start my video chat so they can see me and they have an assurance of it's just me. No one is doing anything else. And although it takes a very short amount of time, they're all able to embrace that. And so I am aware that is a hesitancy sometimes for people, either technologically that's something new for them. They haven't done video chat in their company before, or maybe they've not done video chat at all. And that could happen. That number is dwindling, I think, though, as technology races forward. And the other one is people feel like, well, I don't know if I want you to see my office or something that's going on. But I would assure even our telecommuters who work from home, you know what, just have clothes on. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. I don't care. You don't have to dress up in a suit or whatever it is. And so it's worked out.
All right, thank you, Brandon. One of our other questions is on how you train your remote staff. So particularly when you have global staff that are in different countries or maybe speak different languages, how do you train them on new processes and technologies?
Oh, that's another great question, because any type of training and bringing people up to speed is so critical for all of us in tech support. So we use a multifaceted approach, which I believe really works, because every one of us learns differently. Some of us like looking at the slides. Some of us like hearing. Others actually would like to have hands-on. And so what we do is depending on the criticality of whatever process it is, it's just normal every day. We'll publish it. We'll put it out in an email. We'll update our knowledge articles. We'll let people know, hey, this is something new. And then on our weekly call, our team meeting, we'll walk through it and we'll talk through it. And we also record that meeting to make it available for anyone who is off shift or out that day due to PTO or illness or anything. And so we do that. And so we bring people along with our day-to-day processes. Now for new hire training or for training someone on to actually work on a new function that's completely new to them, we use the same process here locally to where I am as we do for anyone remote around the world. They are at their workstation, and whoever is training is at their workstation, and they actually share screens and they walk it through over the phone. So this is much different than everyone sitting in a classroom or sitting side saddle, but we use the exact same thing, remote or not, to train people and bring them up. It is a little bit of a challenge, but we found that it's paid off, and once we've gotten folks ramped up to this, everyone new who comes in and new processes, it works really well. So I'd encourage us, and I'd love to hear feedback from people as well on what you do to train anyone who is not in the same physical location.
Definitely, and if you have any ideas, please do throw them up in the group chat window. So Brandon, our final question is about the techniques you use to work with remote teams that work on completely opposite schedules from you. So can you give some insight into that?
Oh, definitely. And so I do have here, as in some other organizations, I've been in some teams that are offshore that are exactly 12 hours away from me, or 12 and a half hours distance. And so this requires a little bit of what I touched on during our webinar of I'm having to adjust to their times. So I know that my peer overseas, I only have about an hour, maybe hour and a half window from the time I come in the morning until he goes home. And so what I've had to do is adjust and make calls from home We found ways to use technology that we can text without having to incur $1 per text for our text charges. We'll be able to adjust to when I wake up, have a call with him and folks on his team, and also do the same thing late at night or weekends. If I'm gonna be up late anyway doing something, it's easy for me just to pop my laptop open and get on and talk with them as well. So it's not easy, but it does work.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Those are the sum total of our questions for today. Thank you again for attending today's webinar, Following the Sun, Managing a Distributed Workforce, brought to you by HDI and Everbridge. We will be having a webinar next month, as we do. Next month's topic is on outsourcing. It's entitled Insourcing and Outsourcing Support, What the Data Tell Us. The information for that webinar will be up on our website soon, so please keep an eye on thinkhdi.com. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand. On behalf of our sponsor, Everbridge, and our speakers, Brandon Caudle and Vincent Jeffrey, thanks for your time and have a great day.